Hello, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Simply Saturday, where I get to show you a card that is fast and easy to make. Today's card does feature some designer series paper, and it also features this stamp set called Good Feelings. I really like the size of these stamps, nice large word stamps, and so we're going to be using this one here, Sending Sunshine and Good Feelings Your Way. Now, as many of these Simply Saturday cards, as this happens on many of the Simply Saturday cards, you can take my design and my ideas today simply as inspiration to create something that you like or with the products that you have on hand. So let me show you what we're using, and you can pull the same items or something similar. So the designer series paper that I'm using today is called Hues of Happiness, and I chose this because many of the papers in that set are very large flowers, very big bold prints, and this print is a lot more subtle, this tiny little flower print. So I'm trying to use up these pieces. Now this is just a 1-inch strip cut down into 3-inch chunks. So you'll need 4 pieces that are 1 inch by 3 inches. Then I chose Mossy Meadow as my cardstock color because that is the color of green in these stems and leaves. So for these you will need 4, and these are 1 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. Again, this is Mossy Meadow. Then you'll need a scrap of white, and you want to start out with a piece that is at least 3 inches by 4 inches. We are going to cut this down after it's stamped, but you'll need to start with a piece that big. Then a piece of colored cardstock that is the same as your small strips, 2 3/4 by 3 1/2 inches. And then our card base, I'm using thick basic white cardstock because this is the card base itself. So when that's the case, I do like to use thick cardstock. This is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and it is scored down the center at 4 1/4 for our fold. So this is going to go together very quickly. The first thing that I'm going to do is attach all of my DSP strips to their little cardstock partners. All right, and to make this super fast today, I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. I don't have to wait for the moment or so of the liquid glue to come out. And when I am laying this down here, I can't see the margin on the right, but I know because of the size of my papers that if I have an equal margin at the top, at the bottom, and this left side, the other side is going to be really right on. So I'm able to just lay it down and go. All right, there's the first one. So we're going to do the same steps to all 4 of these. And I know that your imagination is already kicking in with what papers you would like to use. This is so great because you might just have some scraps left in a DSP pack, and perhaps not even one of your favorite patterns in the pack. And this is a good way to use it up. All right, there's 3 of our 4. All right, once we have those strips all prepared, we are going to add them to the front of our card. And I'm just going to eyeball kind of the order that I want these. You can see from the way that the colors ran on the strip that it went from light blue, well, it almost looks like balmy blue, but this is Coastal Cabana, into the yellow, the Daffodil Delight, into the Flirty Flamingo. So you can imagine how this strip looked before I cut it. And let's see, where was this one? This one was at the beginning because then it runs into the blue. So that's kind of how it ran on the paper. So I'm just going to use that as my guide and line them up like so. You could do it in whatever order you want to. All right, so these are going to get glued onto the front of my card base. And I know that I want to try to get equal space, equal white space in between each of the strips and that same amount of space left over here. So when you make your first one, you might want to lay this out like I'm doing now. Once you've done one, I think you'll feel more confident and you won't even have to lay it out. You'll just go right to attaching. All right, so you can kind of see now. Let me put this a little bit more in the center where my spacing looks pretty even on this edge and also the white space in between each one. All right, and on a Simply Saturday card, this is fast and easy, so we don't want to drive ourselves crazy with that. We just want it pretty straight so that your eye doesn't catch something that's crooked. All right, I'm going to start at the bottom, get my first one in place, and just build from there. Now I'm putting adhesive on the very ends because I don't want the ends to pop up, and the middle. I don't think I necessarily need a lot of adhesive running lengthways. All right, so this one is going to go above, and I'm checking my edges, my borders, all that white space. All right, we've got two more. And then we will add the step with our words. Okay, that didn't take much effort at all. And you can see I've got a cute and attractive panel of color laid down right there. All right, so with my stamp, again, I mentioned that we're going to use this one. I just grabbed it right out of the new set. I don't even have the label on it yet, but it's not going to affect how I'm using it. Now it is a large stamp. In fact, I have this mounted on an E block, and so it's a little bit cumbersome to flip this over and walk it around on the ink pad. So if I have a stamp that's this large, I usually take the ink pad to the stamp. I'm using Mossy Meadow just to stay consistent kind of with my background color. And I'm going to stamp on that white scrap. And it is a large stamp. So I'm actually going to stand up, give this a good amount of pressure. And when you do this, you want to take care not to wiggle and rock your stamp, but just press. I'm going to change positions of my hands a couple times. I want to make sure I get the middle. There we go. All right. Even with that effort, it's a little bit light. I could just be happy with it, but I think I'll go ahead and stamp it again because this is real live crafting and sometimes we don't get it exactly the way we want it the first time. So I am going to re-ink, flip my piece over, and I'm actually going to stamp it a second time. Again, standing up and pressing. I'm not going to act like that doesn't happen because sometimes it does. How about with you? All right, all my corners and my middle. Oh, now I got edges, right? All right, so we're going with the first one. Have you had that happen? I'm sure you have. All right, so this is what happens. We're going to take this and trim it down because I do want this piece smaller. So once you're done trimming it down, you're going to end up with this measurement, 2.5 by 3.25. You can see we have a nice dark image on this one. Again, it's a little tricky when I have to work around my camera and I'm trying to reach in and stamp firmly. This one I did off camera, and you can see that that Mossy Meadow is nice and dark. All right, so this has been trimmed down, and now I'm going to attach it to the Mossy Meadow cardstock. This one had a first attempt on the back as well. Do you see that? I'm so happy that paper has two sides. Okay, now this is not going to be an equal border all the way around. I'm going to have a little bit more at the top and the bottom than I do on the sides. I did that simply because I really wanted to exaggerate that this is tall and skinny so that it looks better on my card front like this. I didn't want it to start looking a little bit squarer, which I'm sure would have happened if my green was sticking out on the sides a little bit more. So that's why I went with a narrow and long piece of Mossy Meadow, even a little bit longer on the top and the bottom than the sides. All right, a couple of dimensionals to get this attached. In this case, I'm going to use 5, one on each corner and one in the middle, just to make sure that it doesn't sink down in the middle. It is kind of a large piece to be adding. And I just don't want the middle to sink down like this. So with any number of background cardstock colors, coordinating with whatever designer series paper you want to use, grab a sentiment and you can create a fast but beautiful card. So I'm lining this up so that it's about the same distance here as it is here. You could position it anywhere you want to. Get those pressed down nicely. And the last thing I'm going to do is add just a little bit of embellishment. I'm reaching for my Fun Flowers resin shapes. I'm just going to exaggerate the flowers a teeny bit. So from up here in this purple area, I'm going to go ahead and take a purple flower. I'm going to find a good spot for it. I think I like it here. And then over here, I think I'll go ahead and grab a blue one. And then I need a third. So I'll go ahead and come down here in this area. I could either go with kind of the flirty flamingo. There isn't one that's really as pink as this melon mambo. So I do think that I'll stick, you know what? I want to see if this looks, yeah, it kind of becomes that color. It looks more orange over here, but I feel like once you get it near the colored flowers, it picks up that color. So we'll finish it with one of those. And there we have our card for the day, sending sunshine and good feelings your way. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you next time on another Simply Saturday episode. As always, below this video in the description box, I will put all of the products that I used today as well as links to these products. Thanks for watching. See you next time.